When you can stop and you can label your emotions, it lets us to respond to ourselves with more empathy and understanding. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Did you know that the simple act of just naming your emotions can help stop the spiral and help you overcome even some of your toughest mental roadblocks? Hey friends, welcome back to A Work in Progress. I'm your host, Kimberly. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite mental fitness tools, naming your emotions to tame them. Whether it's a wave of anxiety, a flash of anger, a burst of joy, identifying and naming what we're feeling can be a game changer. But before we get into this episode, this is your daily reminder to slow down and breathe. In today's fast-paced world, we often forget the power of intentional breathing. So if you do nothing else for yourself today, remember to slow down and breathe. So with me real quickly, I want you to focus on your exhale and relax the muscles in your face. Unfurrow your eyebrows, unclench your jaw, drop your tongue from the roof of your mouth and breathe. Relax your shoulders, let your arms hang heavy at your side, unclench your hands and breathe. Just do a quick notice. How does it feel when you just slow down and give yourself just a few seconds to exhale, to recenter yourself? All right, so what is Name It to Tame It? I want you to think back to a moment that you may have felt out of control, overwhelmed, emotionally disconnected, and it led to a spiral. When we can name our feelings, it helps us to regulate our emotional response. It helps us to reduce that emotional overwhelm and really stop the spiral. Had a perfect example this weekend. My kid was feeling super duper overwhelmed with the amount of schoolwork he had to do and managing friend time and household chores. And he's up here, right? Level 10, that there's just so much to do. And then he became paralyzed. And that overwhelm led him to a spiral. So first thing we do is stop and breathe. But then to peel back and go, what is it that you're feeling in this moment? And it was overwhelm. So once we can start to name it, bring it to life, call it out of the dark, it puts us into a place of action. It helps you to separate yourself from it and to stop being engulfed by it. Oftentimes we get caught up in emotions without even realizing it. Maybe there's a lot of toxic things going on in your life and in your world around you. Or maybe others are bringing this into your space and you're bringing it on without even realizing, without even recognizing how you're carrying it in your body, how you're showing up, how it's impacting the way that you show up for yourself and for others around you. When you can stop and you can label your emotions, it lets us to respond to ourselves with more empathy and understanding. When you can't think about it for yourself, if you're a parent, think about your kiddos. They're having a big day. Maybe a friend was really unkind to them and they're feeling sad. They're feeling left out. What do we do for our kiddo? Tell me how you're feeling, right? Label your emotion. And then where does that lead you? Gets you into a place of action where you can be kind to yourself, where you can be kind to your kiddo. I'm sure that doesn't feel good. Let's keep talking about it. Getting them to a place of kindness, compassion, and action. Knowing our emotions also allows us to communicate them better, building stronger relationships as well as support networks. So imagine that you're the kiddo and you're in that challenging relationship and you're not feeling heard in your relationship. If you could say to your spouse, to your partner, to your friend, to your colleagues, I'm feeling misunderstood. I'm not feeling supported. When we can identify what it is in ourselves that emotion is, when we can name it, it moves us to a place of action. We can tame it. It helps us to more effectively communicate, helps us to make an amends. We have a choice as well when we identify the emotion. We can let it go. we can accept or acknowledge it, we can move on, we can move to a place of action. Sometimes it helps us to establish boundaries. Maybe there is a person, place, or thing in your life that's often causing a trigger. When we can name the emotion, I'm feeling very triggered by this person, it helps us to establish a healthy boundary. I'm feeling triggered by this place, right? Maybe there are physical triggers around us that we need to remove ourselves from. So by acknowledging it, this is not one of those situations where you just got to grin and bear it. When we acknowledge it, it helps us to create self-compassion, move to a place of action. Maybe that action is boundaries. So why do we struggle to name emotions? Emotions are often seen as a weakness. We're taught to ignore or suppress them, right? Fake it till you make it. Just suck it up, buttercup. You're fine. It's all around us. Oftentimes, though, we don't have the words to really tie to the emotion. We weren't taught a broad vocabulary for emotions beyond happy, sad, angry, or we're feeling a mix of emotions and it's hard to describe, which can lead to more frustration. So when we can practice the pause, take a moment to breathe and become aware of what's happening inside, that 30-second pause, that exhale, what am I feeling in this moment? And then observe what's going on in your body. Notice where you're feeling tension or where discomfort may be settling in. And then we can start to name the emotion. So look inside yourself and ask what you're really feeling. Identify if it's disappointment, frustration, sadness. Maybe it's a blend of emotions. And then label it and label it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. It helps to reinforce the separation between you and the feeling. So let's bring this into some practical examples. So a very common one, when you're in the workplace and maybe you're facing criticism, instead of acting defensively, pause and say, I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling criticized in this moment. Moves us to a place of action instead of becoming resentful or shutting down. Oftentimes, when I'm led with something, I come from a place of curiosity. It feels like I'm being attacked, maybe. Help me understand what you're trying to communicate. So by identifying the emotion, I'm feeling attacked, I'm feeling criticized, help me to understand. I just open the door for communication. Same thing at school with our kiddos, right? I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling inadequate, especially our high school age kiddos, right? There's so much new information coming at them and the level of which they're expected to respond. When they acknowledge what they're feeling, it helps them put themselves back into the driver's seat. How about when you're feeling overwhelmed? This happened to me this weekend, right? I had so many things to try to balance, and I quickly recognized that I was starting to spiral. And in that moment, all I needed to do was stop, to set it all aside. For me, it was going outside and spending time in nature. And this was not a big, long thing. It was just taking a moment, walking away from it all. I was super overwhelmed by a messy, cluttered house, by a list of work that needed to get done, and just by life's demands generally. By separating myself from that, it gave me a moment to slow down, to recognize what I was feeling so that I could go back in and reprioritize my energy. What about in a relationship? Oftentimes, we get ourselves into really heated conversations. By pausing and sharing what you're feeling, but not just sharing, stopping and recognizing it. I'm feeling unheard, or I'm feeling insecure in the relationship. It helps to instantly lower the emotions in the conversation. And it's really hard to argue with that, right? We're not trying to create more conflict. We're trying to create open communication. If it's with our partner, with our spouse, with our kids, with our coworkers. When we can name it, it helps us to address it. And when it's our emotion, I'm feeling unheard, it moves us to a place of kindness and compassion. This is a big one that I know a lot of us struggle with too, is the big comparison. I feel inadequate, right? When we can pull in, what is it that we're feeling? It helps us move to a place of action. So what do we do? So oftentimes we go, I shouldn't feel this way, right? Then we start the should cycle. Remind yourself that your emotions are valid. Judging them just gives them more fuel. We're just throwing more, and then we're creating another layer of resentment within ourselves. When we can name it, it lets you release that emotion and get to a place of action. This comparison, right? When I'm feeling less than, I'm feeling inadequate, I should be further along in life. Why doesn't my life look Instagrammed? We can stop and then go to a place of, what do I know to be true? Sometimes we're struggling to find the right words. Don't worry if it's not truly a word. Maybe it's a general term, like I'm feeling tense or I'm feeling sadness. Maybe I'm just feeling blah or meh, right? Just pulling it out and calling it to the light helps us get to a place of action and recognition. Helps you to feel much more in control and push through layers of discomfort as well. Over time, naming our emotions to tame it will get easier and more effective, and we'll be able to start slowing it and stopping it in real time before we get overwhelmed and steamrolled by the emotion, by the moment. Other barriers are fear of losing control. So remember that identifying your emotions doesn't amplify them. It helps to bring clarity and self-control. Just like anything else, when we're in a place of unknown, when we pull it out and we sit with it. I think about my teenager in high school and how he gets overwhelmed with some of his coursework and gets really frustrated and down on himself. We're not moving to a place of action. This is not a place of being helpful, but when we can sit with it, when we can name it, and when we can identify it, then we have to figure out, where do we go from here? What are the tools that we need? Maybe we need extra support from teachers or tutors. Maybe we need extra support from friends. Maybe we just need a break from it sometimes as well. Whatever it is that you need, remember that identifying the emotion doesn't amplify it. You're taking that power away. It's helping to bring clarity and self-regulation. So friends, I want to remind you, the next time that you're starting to spiral, to pause, to take an inventory of how you're feeling, to give it a name, to call it out loud, and to get yourself into a place of kindness and compassion, and ultimately to a place of action. Give it a try this week. I promise you, you are constantly being overwhelmed with lots of different emotions, but take a second, label your emotion. You might be surprised about the calm and clarity it can bring. If you want to share your experiences, I would absolutely love to hear about how naming your emotion to tame it has brought some peace, calm, and clarity into your life. Sometimes there's not really a word to go with the emotion. Like I shared before, one of the barriers to naming our emotion is we really don't have a vast vocabulary for our emotions. So part 2 of this, if you will join me next time, is what about that space in between where we really don't have a name for the feeling? It's just kind of a sound, blah, or meh, or wah. Right? Whatever it is, there's not really a word. You're just kind of, ugh. So join me next time as we explore this space between naming it to tame it, and what is the name that we don't seem to have a word for. So friends, until then, I ask that you continue to look for the good and be the rising tide. Make it an amazing day. Be well.